let's do this, people. All right, here we go. It is 5:30 and the September 15th, 2022 Zoning Advisory Committee meeting is called to order. Tyler, roll call.
All right, a new season. Let's go through the lineup. Our newest member first, Shannon Cooley. Did I say it? Coley? All right. Here. Polly Boardman.
Here.
Kristen DeHaan. Here. Tyler Rogers. Here. Christine Hull.
Present.
Christy Essa.
Here.
Lauren Rushing.
Here.
Adriana Publico.
Here.
Amy Howe.
Here.
Darren Fleck.
Here.
Brooke Snyder.
Here.
Natalie Geisels. Absent. We have a quorum.
Awesome. All right. So let's move on to item 2.01, introduction of new members. We have a new member. Is it Zone F? Is that right? Zone F? Zone F, Shannon Coley. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your service. And that is our only new member, but we do have another member. So Adam, would you like to introduce Martha?
Hey, sure. Good evening, everyone. Martha Ramirez Hernandez will be our recording secretary. She is our new executive assistant in the facilities department, and excited to have her.
And before we move on, thank you, Martha, for this amazing packet with folders and wow, very organized. Thank you for that. We appreciate that because clearly we need the organization. All right, here we go. Item 2.02, discussion and possible action to select a chair of the Zoning Advisory Committee for the term ending June 30th, 2023. From the current membership, Shannon Coley, Polly Boardman, Kristen DeHaan, Tyler Rogers, Christine Hull, Christy Essa, Adriana Publico, Natalie Geisels, Lauren Rushing, Amy Howe, Darren Fleck, and Brooke Snyder. And this item is for possible action. So any nominee, anyone?
Lauren Rushing for the record. I would like to nominate Christine Hall for chair of the Zoning Advisory Committee.
I second. This is Kristen DeHaan for the record.
Okay, do we have any discussion?
Are you enjoying the job?
I absolutely love doing this. Yes, I do, actually. I really enjoy it, and it's a wonderful way to serve my community, and I love working with all of you. So I would be very honored to continue as chair. Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, I think we can take a vote. Oh, do we have a public comment on that? Sorry.
Yes, we have a public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Pablo Nava Duran.
Thank you. Hi, Pablo.
I'd really like to appoint Tyler Roger as a chair for the school board. No, not for school board, for the zoning advisory chair. But I think the Christine Hall. I think I will stick with Christine Hall. So.
Well, hey, thanks, Pablo. You just got a promotion.
All those in favor?
All right. Any other public comment? Okay. All right. We can take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Motion passes. Here we go. We'll keep moving along. All right. And now we will, 2.03, discussion and possible action to select a vice chair of the Zoning Advisory Committee for a term ending June 30th of 2023. From the current membership, Shannon Coley, Polly Boardman, Kristen DeHaan, Tyler Rogers, Christy Essa, Adriana Publico, Natalie Geisels, Lauren Rushing, Amy Howe, Darren Fleck, and Brooke Snyder. Do we have any motions or nominations?
Adriana Publico, I nominate Tyler Rogers to continue as vice chair for the Zoning Advisory Committee.
Polly Boardman, second.
Discussion? We can ask Tyler the same question. Do
Are
you
you
like?
enjoying the job?
I very much enjoy the job and calling roll and filling in big shoes in your absence. So thank you. I'd be honored to continue as the vice chair.
Okay, do we have public comment?
We do have a public comment from Pablo Nava Duran.
Yeah, I will support Tyler Watcher as the vice chair for the zoning advisory committee. You're doing a great job, so keep up good work.
Thank you, Pablo.
Okay, so we'll take a vote now. All those in favor of Tyler Rogers continuing on as the vice chair?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. Congratulations. He's so excited to continue text messaging me all the time. Okay, 2.04, possible action to approve the minutes of May 19th, 2022 from our meeting. If you, in your awesome packet from Martha, you have a copy of it. Did everybody receive? Okay.
Tyler Rogers, for the record, I'd like to move for the approval of the meeting minutes from May 19th, 2022.
Do we have a second?
Holly Boardman, second.
Okay, any discussion? Do we have any public comment on the? Okay, all right, we can go for a vote to approve the minutes from May 19th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Minutes are approved from May 19th. All right, and now the moment we've all been waiting for, item 2.05, presentation from Washoe County School District Office of the General Counsel on Nevada open meeting law. Neil, you didn't bring popcorn. I mean, really? All right. I yield to Neil Rombardo, our Chief Legal Counsel for the Washoe County School District. Thanks for being here, Neil.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you for having me. My pleasure. So, Adam, you're trying. All right, we're just going to do it this way. My tech savviness is lacking. I downloaded it, but it didn't go as a PowerPoint. It's a PDF. I saved it as a PDF.
Yeah, you can't.
So I can't.
That's all you got.
Right. So we're just going to go with that.
You don't want to use it as a PDF?
That's what it is right there.
Oh, I see.
Haha.
I'll keep helping. There we go.
No, it's still going to be a PDF.
Yeah, it's not going to be a PowerPoint. Maybe a little cooler.
Oh, that is cool. All right. That looks great. Thanks, Adam. Good evening, everyone. How's it going? Sorry for the little technical difficulties. We sent this over as a PDF instead of a PowerPoint. I think that was our fault. So thanks for having me. My name is Neil Rombardo. I'm the Chief General Counsel for the school district. I'm your assigned attorney as well, so I will be joining you when you have bigger agendas and more action items, which we'll talk about today, what an action item is. But it's great to be here with all of you and great to see all of you. This is a hard room to talk in. I'm going to make sure I get the neck going. All right, so today we're going to talk about open meeting law. Most of you have been dealing with the open meeting law for the last several years, a few of you a little less than that. And so we thought it would be a good idea to do a refresher. What I would like to start with is saying thank you. You know, you're a volunteer committee. I didn't do that. You're a volunteer committee, and I can say that the Board of Trustees, as well as the superintendent, really appreciate you volunteering to do this. They take what you do very seriously, and oftentimes they won't ignore your recommendations. Sometimes they do, and that's just the way it goes. But they do take what you do very seriously, and they hate ignoring your recommendations, and oftentimes they'll send things back for those of you who have been here for a while. So what you're doing is a big service to the Washoe County School District, and on behalf of those folks, I would like to say thanks. Part of being on this committee is that you do have to comply with Nevada's open meeting law, The open meeting law is found in NRS 241. And basically what it says is, if you're all going to meet, you have to do it in open. So that's it. Presentation's over. Talk to you guys later. No, it's not quite that simple. You know, us being lawyers, we have to make it more difficult than it is. Actually, those guys being legislators need to make it more difficult than it is. So, what is the open meeting law? The open meeting law says that if you meet as a committee, that you must take your actions and your deliberations in open. And I underline those two words on this slide because we'll talk more about them later, but basically you have to vote. And a vote isn't just a formal motion, that's if you build a consensus. So if half of you got together, actually just over half, and built a consensus without taking a motion, and you were chatting in the parking lot about a topic that might come before you, that would be an action. And I'm sure you didn't notice your conversation in the parking lot, and I'm sure you didn't meet all the other criteria of the open meeting law. So that would actually be an open meeting law violation. There's plenty of cases, unfortunately for the Board of Regents of NSHE, about that exact topic. They chose to use a fax machine. I don't know if anybody uses those anymore, but that's how they did it. And then the other thing that you cannot do is deliberate, which means if you got out there and you had your conversation, and again, it was more than 50% of you, and you didn't actually come to a consensus, but you still discussed amongst yourselves the topic that might come before you, that too is a violation of the open meeting law. So you have to be really careful about how you communicate with each other. So we're going to go through that in this presentation. It's a little wonky, sorry about that. So who does the open meeting law apply to? It applies to you as a public body, and it also applies to the Board of Trustees. You would actually be a subcommittee. It does not apply, and this is really important, a lot of people get this confused, it does not apply to the executive staff of the Washoe County School District. So if the superintendent has a meeting with all of her leadership team, such as myself and Adam and the other folks that sit on there, our area superintendents, that is not a public meeting and does not have to comply with the open meeting law. I'm going to figure this out. I think it's just one little, yes. Okay, so what is a meeting? A meeting, you know, I'm sure you all said, well, I know what a meeting is. Well, you don't for purposes of the open meeting law. So a meeting is a gathering of a quorum of the membership of a public body to deliberate towards a decision or to make a decision. So what's a quorum? A quorum is a simple majority, 51% or more. If you were a committee of 10, 5 would not be a quorum. You would need 6. I forget what your numbers are. I guess I could count it up, but I think you get the point. It just has to be over 50%. And then you would have to be meeting on a topic in which you have jurisdiction over. And so that would be a meeting. And again, we're going to talk about some examples. You have to avoid the accidental or the inadvertent meeting. That's using your text messages and your emails and things of that nature. If you have any questions, let me know. Please interrupt.
Question.
Okay.
So
Answer.
we have 12 members because we have a 13-member committee, but there's one vacant seat. So a quorum is still 7.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so here's the other way, and we're going to talk, this is where, I've already alluded to this, but this is where the open meeting law gets tricky. It is still a meeting if you do a series of gatherings that amounts to more than a quorum. So how does that work? Darren and Brooke talk, and they come to some consensus, and then Brooke takes it to Amy, and they talk, and they come to some sort of agreement. And then they share it with Kristen, and then Kristen shares it with Christy, and then Christine. And then it gets to that 7th person. At that point, you've just conducted a meeting. It's a series of gatherings that are less than a quorum, but when you add them up, it equals a quorum to discuss a topic. And so the best way I can explain this is what the Board of Regents did is they wanted to, I believe, remove the chancellor. This was in the early 90s, maybe late 80s, somewhere around that time frame. they wanted to remove the chancellor, and so what they did is they took a vote by fax machine and went from one fax to another fax to another fax to another fax, and then once they hit the quorum, the decision was made to get rid of the chancellor. That's a violation of the open meeting law for so many reasons. But at the time, it obviously wasn't that clear to them. So, or we'll just go with it wasn't that clear. Why disparage anyone?
So Neil, does that apply to text messages
It
and
does.
Facebook Messenger
Yeah.
and posts on a Facebook, like
Yep.
comments on a
I'm gonna
posting?
talk about all
Oh,
that stuff.
All right, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Look at that. You just foreshadowed my next slide. So what's the message here? The message is really, really be careful of electronic communications. Text message is probably where you're going to violate this now, if you're going to violate it, but you're not going to violate it because you're all listening so closely. And you're not going to have a text string with a quorum, and you're not going to text about topics that are going to come in front of the zoning committee, which also means you're not going to do that on Facebook. Really be careful on Facebook about, hey, what does the community think? Because if you're all friends, guess what you just did? You just started a meeting with all of your fellow committee members. So avoid email conversations like that, avoid text like that. If you are on an email or you want to send an email, what I always say is blind carbon copy everyone. Why? Because then you can't hit the reply all button and have a meeting. So if you want to share your thoughts with your fellow committee members, it is not a violation to BCC them and send your thoughts to them. Where it becomes a violation is if you start a conversation and they start responding back and the rest of you are included. Does that make sense? So if 7 of them respond, then you have a problem, right? It's 7 of them respond if they're all in the same conversation. You are allowed to talk individually to each other. It's really nuanced, and I'm going to get to that next. But if you have 7 of them responding and all 7 of them can see the conversation that's going on via email, I'm using conversation loosely, but you understand what I mean, the email conversation, that's where you get the violation. If it's a one-on-one communication, as long as you're not sharing the thoughts of everyone else in that conversation, then you're okay. So another way of thinking about it is if you have 7 points of view in one conversation, that's a violation. If that's where you get the collective discussion. Does that make sense? I see you're confused. Go ahead, ask. I've confused you thoroughly. I apologize.
No,
Just shout out. Don't worry about it. I can hear
Shannon
you.
Coley for the record. The BCCing, I'm talking to 2 people on the title. And then I BCC everybody else.
I wouldn't talk to anybody on the title, and I would BCC everyone.
Oh,
And then
okay.
what I would do is I put in bold at the top, and anybody, all these guys have seen it from me before, is, so you want to be polite. I think BCC is horribly rude to do via email, and it's unprofessional. So what I would say is, I am blind carbon BCCing the entire commission on this. And then this way everyone knows who's involved in the conversation.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
So I do that on the top in bold, like extra bold letters so everyone understands. But again, I really recommend you avoid doing any of this. Just come here. We'll work you through the zoning issues. Adam's great at it. Lauren's great at it. And I'm pretty good help. So I think we'll do all right. Let's all make our decisions here and have our conversations here. The other way to think about the open meeting law, I used to teach this for the Attorney General's office. Wow, a long time ago now, I guess 16, 17 years ago. I was the open meeting law deputy for then AG Sandoval. And it's knowledge is power, right? So I love that little thing, Schoolhouse Rock, knowledge is power. You are spending taxpayers' money, so they have the right to know what you are doing. And so that's why we do it here and not via email or via text. So that's another way of looking at it. So I really recommend you avoid this, but those are little techniques to make sure if you really feel compelled to send that email, how to avoid violating the open meeting law. And if you're not sure, reach out. We'll help you. So here's some of the nuance that I was sharing earlier, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I've covered it for the most part. Again, a Board of Regents case, this is a 1998 case. You can privately discuss public issues or even lobby for votes. You can't poll.
Sorry.
No problem. You can privately discuss public issues, and you can even lobby for votes. What you can't do is you can't poll each other. How are you voting? How are you voting? How are you voting? You can say, I really think we should do this. Don't you think so? In a one-to-one conversation, all right? The Supreme Court said that's okay, and that's what I was talking about earlier. But again, just be careful with that, because if it becomes a one-to-one, and the next thing you know, it's three thoughts are shared with Amy, or two, and then three to Kristen. Now we have four, right? Now we're creating the walking quorum thing. And I've already covered bullet point 2, and I've covered bullet point 3. Just, I really want you to be careful on the electronics. That's the whole point of this, and that's why it says caution needed. So the legislature has updated this. Meetings can be held via teleconference, telephone, video conference, over Zoom. I'll just leave it at that. So, what's that? Right. Well, it's kind of funny because they passed a law in we're going to 2023, in 2021 related to COVID, and they basically said, look, we've added this so that you can do this. Well, we could have done it all along. So it was kind of so I didn't really want to say that, so now I've said it. So what are you going to do? You forced me into it. All right. That's the popcorn part. I'll probably get a call from some friends of mine, but that's okay. So what is not a meeting? What is not a meeting is a social function, and that's specifically outlined in the statute. So if you are at a social function, let's say something for the school district, you all go to the opening of, I know the new hug is open, but let's just say you all went to that. That's okay. That's a social function. But what you can't do is don't walk off in the corner and start discussing zoning issues. Then that's not okay, right? So that seems pretty easy. And then what's a non-meeting? A non-meeting is if you had to meet with me, separately related to potential or existing litigation. I would let you know if that type of meeting is necessary. I don't really see any way that would come up unless somebody filed an open meeting law violation against you. But you're going to listen to what I'm telling you, so you're not going to violate the open meeting law. We're all going to be good. All right? So, but that is also permitted under the open meeting law. So what is an action? As I said earlier, any decision or consensus, any commitment or promise, and again, it can include serial communications, and the serial communications is what I've described now 4 or 5 times. And the only reason why I keep describing that is because that is how the violation is going to occur if one occurs, is the serial communications. So just to really pay attention to what you're doing, okay? This is not totally relevant, but I do like to express this to public bodies because you probably won't have a full house every meeting. So remember, it's a vote of the quorum that's present. So a quorum for this committee is 7. So you can actually pass an item with 4 members voting in the affirmative. You can hold a meeting with 7, and you can pass an item with 4 members. Now, and I have personal knowledge of how this went down because I used to be an attorney in Carson City and represent them, is that if you are elected officials, you must have a majority of the entire public body. So what they used to like to do in Carson is they had 5 members that were elected to the Board of Supervisors. If a hot topic came up, 2 of them wouldn't make it that day, kind of weird, and then 3 of them would show up, and the one who was most politically on the fence or in trouble, maybe not getting reelected, he would vote no on the item, or she, and then the other 2 would pass the item even though all 5 members really wanted the item to pass. So what the legislature said is we're not going to allow that anymore. What has to happen is you have to have a majority vote of the entire public body if all members are elected. So our Board of Trustees, by way of example, who does not do what I just explained, and that was also 30 years or 25 years ago, so before anybody gets upset, it was a long time ago, all right? we have 7 members of Board of Trustees. It takes 4 to hold a meeting, but then it would take all 4 to vote for the item to pass. Does that make sense? Okay.
Since there are 11 of us here today, you would need 6 to pass on this.
Yes. Yeah, it's the majority of the quorum present. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I guess I didn't make that clear. Okay, so I want to just delve into ethics real quick. This is NRS 281A. NRS 281A says that there has to be ethical considerations for members of a public body. Now, it's interesting. The statute applies to public officials and public officers. It's not clear whether or not it applies to you, but what I always recommend is if you feel you have a conflict of interest, I don't know what it would be here. You don't really vote for dollars. Capital funding tends to have these issues more so.
Kids who go to the schools we're talking about, maybe? No?
Maybe, but here's the thing is the law has to, what the law says is the decision has to affect you more than it affects everyone else in the community. So that wouldn't be the case because your child would be affected the same as any other child. So that really wouldn't apply. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but if something comes to you and you think to yourself, boy, I feel like this might be an ethical dilemma for me, let me know. I'll guide you through NRS 281A. And the reason why I bring this up in the open meeting law presentation is it actually shrinks the quorum because it shrinks the membership if you're truly conflicted off. Most of the time what we'll do is we'll write you, and I'll write it for you, and you just read it at a disclosure. And you would disclose to the public, I do have this issue. Like it might be okay to disclose, I have a child in this area, but it doesn't affect me more than it would affect anyone else. That would be okay. Yeah, that might be something you want to disclose. Technically, you probably don't have to, but you could. So, so I just put that on there. Just if you don't feel right about it, let me know. Actually, what I'd prefer is you let your liaison know, and then they'll let me know. Only because we're a team of 4. We have 8,000 employees and 100 plus school sites that we get emails from. So if you're emailing me, you're not going to hit the top of my list. If I may not even recognize the name, no offense. But if you let them know,
Yeah.
they'll get to me, okay? And I'll get you an
Generally,
answer.
we've always done that, where
Yeah.
if our children are in that zoning kind of vertical alignment, we've all always said, I have children at this school, and whether or not and most of the time it doesn't actually impact our families, but
Right.
we've generally always said that just so that it's on public record. So,
Yeah.
is there anything more specific that we need to say except for just letting the public know that we do in fact we live in this area? I mean,
Yep.
we're all residents of Washoe County, so
Yep.
likely we're going to be.
Everyone is appointed to this position for what you
Yep.
bring to it, and that's
Yeah.
great.
Okay,
It's not
great.
a problem.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. So that's just some ethical considerations, not long. So as I said, it reduces the calculation on the quorum. We'll skip ahead. So some of the things that I think are important to share is some of what staff is doing behind the scenes to help get these set up. So it's not that easy to just say, hey, we're going to have another meeting in a week. That's actually almost virtually impossible because we have to get all the materials put into an agenda, and we have to get the agenda posted 3 working days prior to the meeting even occurring. So, for example, this meeting is occurring on Thursday. By the way, Chiefs versus Chargers tonight. I'm going to speed up a little bit. I forgot. So this agenda would have to be posted on Monday by 9 a.m., which means staff is working on the back end of the week before that, getting all of the materials together, the great maps that Adam puts forth, all of the ideas that Lauren and her team put forth. So it's not as simple as just, hey, let's have a meeting. That's just not how these work. And they're not supposed to, because folks like Pablo and other folks who are interested, they want to show up and they want to be a part of this. Again, you're spending their money, you're making decisions that affect their children. They have a right to hear what you're going to think. So some of the things that we do is we create a notice. A notice has a time, place, and location of all the meetings. It will list a location of where the notices have been posted. These are all just required by statute. I'm going to go through them quickly. The name and contact information of one person who will provide support materials, locations where the support materials are can be obtained, and should include a statement regarding assistance for those who need assistance. And then, as part of the notice, a lot of people confuse the two, and this is super technical, anal lawyer stuff. The notice actually has an agenda in it, but everyone just calls it an agenda, and if you do that, that's fine. We all understand what you're talking about. But the agenda are the action items, for example, or information items, like this is an agenda item, this presentation, lucky you guys. And all action items, or all agenda items, need to be clear and complete. There is a higher standard for action items. Those need to be clearer and completer than other items. I know those aren't words. I just was trying to get your attention because I can tell I'm putting you to sleep. And it must include the term for possible action. Okay? And so I think that's good. Also, though, you have to have public comment. Remember, Chair, always, 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 and remember, clerk, hold up the card. Like, hey, I got public comment on this action item, and remember to ask, because that's the worst thing we can do is on an action item forget to get public comment. Yeah, that's a, and if you do miss it, go back, reopen the item, take the public comment, ask the commission or committee, and I'll be here most of the time if there's action items. If there's not action items, I don't show. Sorry, guys, just we have a lot of public bodies. But if I'm not here, reopen the item, take the public comment, ask the committee if the public comment changes their vote, and if it doesn't, then just keep moving forward. Okay?
Sorry, just to be completely clear.
Yep.
Should we ask for public comment on every single agenda item?
You do not have to. You have to on action items. And yeah. So,
Okay.
does that make
Only,
sense?
only action.
Yep.
Check.
Yep.
Okay.
Because you have a general public comment period at the end. The chair has discretion if the chair, or if you're acting chair because you're vice chair, wants to take public comment on this great open meeting law presentation, go for it, man. You can do that if you so desire. You can. The chair has a lot of discretion, and the law throughout the United States is pretty clear on that. And in Nevada, we're getting more clear finally on that topic, which is good. I think that the chair should, because it's your job to manage the meeting, right? So, here you go, Tyler. Public comment is not required on every individual item on the agenda, and here's how it's laid out. These are the technical statutes, and I'm not going to waste your time going through those. Here's how we run the public comment in the Washington County School District. We take public comment at each action item, and then we take general public comment at the end of the meeting. And the reason why that switch occurred is because at meetings, there were action items, things that people showed up for that would not go till 11 o'clock at night because we had a general public comment period up front. And that general public comment period would go 6-7 hours. And literally, people were sitting there with their small children until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And the chair said, we got to do something about this. We can't, it's not fair, because those are specific action items. These are general public comment items that are not on the actual agenda, taking up all this time. So we've actually flipped how we did it. And somebody filed an open meeting law complaint against us. We've actually received 23 open meeting law complaints against the Board of Trustees, and I'm proud to report every one of them have been unfounded. We've won every single one of them. I will toot my own horn. This is my thing. I'm an expert in this, and I'm very comfortable with what we do here.
Neil, I have a question about, so at the beginning, this item on the agenda, are we supposed to read the entire thing? We've done that in the past at
Nope.
some meetings, but we
You
don't need to. Okay.
There's a little section.
I just realized this time I didn't, and normally I do, so I was, yeah.
There is a section that says, give me 1 second here. I didn't expect that. I would read, see where it says public comment, closing items. Comments from the public are invited at this time on topics not
Yes.
specifically addressed elsewhere
So
on the
read that whole
agenda.
item out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you can read that first sentence and then say each person gets 3 minutes. I don't even think you need to read the whole item.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yep,
Adam, another question. Can you go back to the previous slide? Because I'm a little confused.
I can. Go ahead.
So I read this first sub-bullet,
Uh-huh.
after roll call agenda item, before any action item. I'm reading that saying, we're supposed to take a general public comment after roll call.
No. actually, I should have updated the slide. We flipped that. That's how we used to do it. My bad.
Okay, that was confused.
We flipped it. I forgot to update the slide. Thank you for
Okay.
catching that. I will update it. It's amazing what you miss. I went through this thing 3 times, and I can't believe I missed that. Yeah. So we flipped it. So that slide is, so what we did is we got rid of the first general public comment period, and we do public comment on each action item. Because what the law requires is that before you take an action, you have to take public comment.
Okay, so what that should say is, basically, on action item is the first paragraph, and at the end for general public
Yep.
comment. Okay, thank
Right.
you.
Yep. Thank you for catching that. I will fix that. Slide 21. I'll have to remember that. Blackjack, right? Okay. So posting the agenda, again, I already shared that with you. The agendas are posted 3 days ahead of time. They have to go to multiple locations. They have to be posted on the state's website. It's a lot of work. I only share all this with you so that you guys realize what it takes to do these meetings. Because we have had instances in the past, I'm sure those who've been around for a long time, where members were voting to just do meetings week after week after week. I was like, no, you guys, it's a lot of work. Plus, we have to make all of the backup materials available to the public. That's a lot of work. We also have to upload them. Technically, I don't think we have to comply with this, but we do because it says it's for only cities or counties. But we also have to upload them to a different website, all of our support materials. It's not easy to load up some of this information, especially for this committee, because your maps are difficult. So just keep that in mind. If you are going to talk about somebody, you have to give them notice. I cannot imagine you have a reason to talk about somebody in this committee, but I always put it on there. That was a clear violation that the Nevada Supreme Court held. You just can't do it. Tangential references, if for some reason you mentioned Dr. Enfield or you mentioned Lauren or Adam, that's okay, right? It's not, you can't mention a person's name. You can't start saying, well, aren't you just wrong and attacking their character? Okay. So the golden rule of the open meeting law, I made this up. I don't know how good it is, but it's been around forever, and I've noticed multiple jurisdictions have stolen it on their PowerPoints. So if the public body is not sure whether a certain act should be done in the open, it should always perform that act at a properly noticed open meeting, and there can never be an open meeting law issue. Okay? I do want to touch base on one thing. I know we're talking about open meeting law, but it is related, and that's your Public Records Act. There's a new case out of Lyon County where the Lyon County commissioners decided to talk to each other via text messages and basically took action via text. It's not that new anymore. I guess it's 6 years old. Anyway, your text messages can be public records. So again, avoid texting each other if it involves public business. So and the other thing is your emails are public records if they're related to the zoning committee, even if you use your private email account. So I really strongly recommend to all of those who volunteer, and again, thank you for volunteering, get a free email, one that's Gmail, Yahoo, and just put on there, adrianazoning@yahoo.com. And then have everything go into there. Don't give it to anyone else. And then if somebody wants your public record, I will defend you if we have to go to court. That's not a problem. We're very successful at that too. But it's a lot easier for me to grab it from that Yahoo account than spin through your Yahoo account and try to figure it out. Especially if you have personal stuff in there. You don't want your grocery list out there or your pictures of your kids or whatever. And what happens is if a lawsuit were to occur, a court's going to go through all that stuff. So get a private, or not a private email, but a separate email for your committee. That's my recommendation. Okay? Those who are employed with us, obviously, you don't care, but.
We don't care because our emails are already public record, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
So you guys, it doesn't matter. But for those of you who are private citizens, you don't want to open yourself up to that exposure. And also keep it off your phone, because if you're texting on your phone, guess what the court's going to do? They're going to want to go through all your text messages. And then I'm going to have to file a bunch of motions, and they're going to file a bunch of motions. It's just going to be a headache. So really, this is saving me a headache down the road, all right? So, anyway, just a recommendation on that. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. A little longer than I had hoped, but good questions. Are there any other questions? All right. Y'all have a
Great,
good night.
thank you so much. We have a public comment?
Yes,
Okay,
from Pablo Nava Duran.
Okay. I want to talk about the new rebuttal that mentioned that that you have to follow the law ethically. If you don't follow the law, there is someone who file lawsuits, like with the with the CND, citizen and dissent. If you have to, and have to take you to court, something whatever. But we need to keep it clean and ethical, and should be professional matter. And also, we do not zone on based on diversity or segregation. It should be on safety, safe route to school, and focal alignment of freedom of school. And then thank you very much. Have a nice day.
thank you, Pablo. All right. Did anybody have any other questions about open meeting law? All right, let's move on. Item 2.06, information and discussion of the anticipated cadence of our committee work, including potential timeline for rezoning needs during the 2022-2023 school year. This will include any requests from the Board of Trustees. This is an item for information and discussion only. And Lauren Ford, you have the floor.
Thank you. For the record, Lauren Ford, Staff Liaison for the Zoning Advisory Committee. So you'll see that September, we're doing our introductions of new members, presentation of the open meeting law, and introduction to Lemon Valley rezoning. We held the meeting here as a neutral place for the first meeting. October, we will be holding the meeting in O'Brien, and we will dig deeper into Lemon Valley area and discuss options. We will list it as for possible action at that time. We always have November, where we could come back again if there are questions that you have or more information that is needed. We have that opportunity in November to do so. December will be canceled. And then in January, we put January through May because at the next meeting, we're going to share some hotspots. And then in January, Adam is going to share with you the modernization study and kind of look at where they're at with all of their meetings that they're having to figure out what we should go into or if there isn't something we should go into based upon their study. So that'll be what our plan is so far. And then in January, we will update it depending on how things move. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
One question, sorry.
Yes.
Tyler Rogers for the record. So first I've heard of a modernization study. So Adam, are you going to tell us more about that this evening?
Yep. Yes or no?
A little bit.
A little bit?
A little bit.
Just a little bit?
Love it.
Cool. Excited.
You know what? Why don't I'll dive into that briefly. There's a few elements of this forthcoming cadence that I will foreshadow a little bit, but we'll start with the modernization study. So, the school board has approved us going forward with a consultant agreement that is underway as we speak. We hired a national architecture firm by the name of Canon Design to come in and conduct. This is a national firm that's conducted these types of projects across the nation, various school districts, various sizes. But anyway, to conduct a comprehensive study of all of our existing schools across the district, really looking at it from a diverse perspective, both highly quantitative, pieces and parts and square feet and population and the age of equipment and things like that, but also very qualitative, academic performance, demographics, a whole host of other variables, including the architectural comparisons to our modern elementary, middle, and high schools, really in an effort to derive a proposed scope and program of projects to try to create a higher degree of parity from a facility standpoint between our existing newest schools and all the rest of our schools. So ultimately, it's a pretty wide open slate at this point as to what that might look like. But fortunately, we have reached an inflection point in a sense in our capital program where we have most recent history been building capacity as rapidly as possible to address pent-up overcrowding. We've reached a healthy equilibrium with that. There's growth in areas. We will need new schools in the future, but we no longer have a need to address pent-up overcrowding at quite the pace that we did. We will, of course, continue to need and will continue to make aggressive investments in our capital renewal program, we call it, just replacing boilers and roofs, things like that. But this is really projects like, if some of you remember, we called them revitalization projects in the early 2000s, or possibly projects like what we completed at Swope Middle School, a major renovation where we, reinvest in the existing facility but make some significant modifications to it. Again, largely to try to bring that facility up to a level of parity with our newest middle schools. Or the next obvious example is O'Brien, where rather than try to modernize and renovate that school, we actually were better off to reconstruct that school. Those types of scenarios and many, many others will be considered by this firm with tremendous input from the public. So ironically, as Neil was speaking, an email went out to, I don't know, a large group of individuals, presumably many of you from the school district, announcing a virtual forum, community forum on this topic with this consultant next Wednesday, the 21st. They're also going to be in attendance at the superintendent's town hall next Thursday at Desert Skies Middle School. So opportunities for the public, multiple opportunities, multiple mediums online, et cetera, ultimately intending to culminate in a study, merely a study, right? And then it will be up to the board to consider moving forward with individual projects. But the nexus from that to the zoning advisory committee is, again, pretty open-ended. There may be scenarios where strategic realignment of enrollment zones might create opportunities from a facility standpoint that are bigger in scale than what we've typically worked with, right? We're just working within the available resources of our existing facilities. But if we talk about making an addition to an existing facility, that might create an opportunity for us to modify enrollment boundaries, and things like that are anticipated to be proposed through this process, and that then might create opportunities or need even for this committee to take action. So it's very exciting, honestly, because we have the means to talk about this in a sincere way. This isn't hypothetical. We really can cause these types of improvements to occur. So that's it in a nutshell. But when you see these types of invitations, I don't know that they'll present before this body, but they are tentatively, well, they're anticipated to present before the Board of Trustees very soon, and then we'll be engaging with the community in a variety of ways throughout the rest of this year and into January, February 2023.
Thank you for that summary. One follow-up on the qualitative aspect of what this firm is doing. Are you anticipating them asking any zoning-related questions of the public?
I don't recall that coming up specifically. I think those community forums and, they're a little bit their script. So we'll see how those open-ended conversations with the community go. But they will be certainly analyzing the data and possibly, it's probably a pretty dynamic engagement, Hey, we see an opportunity from our lens, looking at the maps and the data. How does that pencil from your standpoint? And staff's, well, hey, that's a good idea. Or no, in fact, there's these regional or local hurdles to what you're considering. So I don't know. There might be an opportunity for them to present at one of our meetings. But really, I wanted to tee this up as more of a, if there is a zoning committee role as a result of the study, that's when it would come to this committee. Okay, anything else on that?
I don't think so. Any other questions on the modernization study? I think that it's a really good idea for everybody on this committee to attend a forum in your area that you represent, simply because there may be, things that come up, and it will be great for you to bring it back if there's an opportunity for some rezoning. So I definitely encourage everybody to attend everything that you can. Also, if you're on this committee, you obviously really care about our community and our school district, so likely this is of high interest to you. So I know I will try to attend as much as I can and really follow the process. So I hope that you all will do the same, but then we'll have a presentation if there's any need for rezoning, which is a distinct possibility, it sounds like. We have a public comment on
Sorry,
this item.
before we take to that end,
Nope, you're good.
Lauren, can you share with us when these forums are happening? Is that information that can be shared with the committee?
I will.
You will? Okay.
Yep. We're bringing those into focus as we speak. I don't have those in front of me right this moment, but I'll make sure to keep you guys abreast of the meeting times, dates, some of the online opportunities to participate. I would strongly concur with Christine. Everybody on this committee is not only above average from an engagement standpoint, but above average from a knowledge standpoint about the district and the inner workings of this endeavor. So we welcome your input for sure.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I will spend just a minute on the October hotspots.
Oh, yeah.
In October, we'll be carrying forward much of what we are going to talk about here this evening, but we do intend to bring back an informational presentation on some areas of interest. This committee year is a little unique as opposed to, I think, every committee year past. We've had a pending new school that, was a must to address. This year, we don't have that. We do have what we think is an opportunity to improve the enrollment balance at some of our schools, but we also, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight and thereafter, but when we refer to them as hotspots, it's future needs that we're forecasting that I'm sure are on many of your minds that you would like maybe an update on, and that's really what that's likely to be. We'll have some high-level updates as the enrollment figures have come in and the dust kind of settles, and we've had an opportunity to analyze them a little bit, just some nuggets, some takeaways, but a couple areas that may likely need action from the zoning committee in future committee years. I want to proactively, hey, they're on our radar R2. This is our current best thinking. They're not on the docket for this school year from an action standpoint, but that's the intention there. Okay? And the rest of the stuff tonight is really just a warm-up for next month. As I said, we do think there's an opportunity to make an improvement to some of the enrollment distribution in the Lemon Valley area. It is not predicated on the opening of a new school, so that's unique.
Do we want to do the public comment on this item and then do, the presentation's a different item, isn't it? Yeah.
No, I think it's all contained in item 2.06, so whatever your preference.
No, it's separated. It's 2.07 has the,
There's
The
another
north-
page.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I just realized that they were separate.
As Neil stated, there's nothing for action, so
Okay.
you don't have to take public comment at this time. You can wait.
Okay, we'll wait then. So we'll just let this. So, item 2.07, information and discussion regarding proposed enrollment zone adjustments for the 23-24 school year, potentially impacting the following schools: Cold Springs Middle School, William O'Brien STEM Academy, Desert Heights Elementary School, Nancy Gomes Elementary School, Michael Inskeep Elementary School, Lemon Valley Elementary School, and Silver Lake Elementary School, Alice Smith Elementary School, and Stead Elementary School. This item is also for information and discussion only. We will be meeting out at O'Brien in the next meeting to interact with the community on this item in October. So, Adam,
Okay.
the floor is yours.
Thanks again. We knew we had some sort of administrative ground to cover tonight. We've taken some time, done some good work. This is really just a warm-up. Get everybody kind of oriented for next month. All right, so we're starting off, these are the existing conditions. Always a good trip up to the North Valleys if folks aren't that familiar with that area. We're going to talk about Desert Heights Elementary, Lemon Valley Elementary, Alice Smith, and Stead Elementary primarily are the 4 elementaries that feed O'Brien Middle School on this map. For anybody that's new to the committee or hasn't watched these before, we like to depict the enrollment boundaries for the elementary schools with the blue lines and the enrollment boundaries for the middle schools with the colors. So this is Cold Springs Middle School, this is O'Brien Middle School. We like to depict the enrollment boundaries for the high schools with a dark gold. So it's overlapping on the middle school line, but you can kind of see my cursor, the difference between North Valleys and Proctor Hug. So that's what's going on there. You can see Silver Lake Elementary is in this kind of peach colored area. These guys go to Cold Springs Middle, whereas all the rest of these guys go to O'Brien. You got North Valleys High School, etc. You know, again, geographically, kind of get your bearings. This is 395 Virginia Street, so we've got a fair amount of residential on the southwest side or opposite side of the highway from Alice Smith, Lemon Valley instead, and you can see that enrollment boundary extending across that line. And then you can see these contiguous enrollment boundaries between Desert Heights, Stead, and Lemon Valley, and then also, of course, Alice Smith sharing a boundary with Lemon Valley. So there's some opportunities there that we're going to look at as we get into it. But really, all right, so this is just a little more history. We've been up here recently. The zoning committee has taken action up here recently, in large part stemming from the opening of Michael Inskeep Elementary. If you guys have been all the way up to the top of North Valley, Cold Springs, Inskeep is one of our newest elementary schools. But we did some work together back pre-pandemic even to figure out how to assign the enrollment zone for that school and to rezone the 5th graders, if you can believe that. The 5th graders were up in the middle school for a time back into the elementary school level. So we achieved that, and the board approved that. We also then in 2021 made some moves affecting the high school level that was in part motivated by the opening of the new O'Brien Middle School. So you can kind of follow that timeline up there. It may come up from the public like, hey, we've been rezoned a lot lately. We've heard that recently in South Meadows. I think that's fair, but it will be, you know, our responsibility, my responsibility to clarify, what has changed and when it changed and what's being proposed to change here, which is not the same thing. So I think that's important background. So this is also sort of I think a powerful image, basically depicting the existing utilization and capacities of, these are the Cold Springs Middle School feeders. So I guess this slide is basically intended to speak to those schools so as to say, we're not likely going to involve them. They're fine, basically. We want to at least speak to it. Hey, what about Cold Springs Middle? They're fine. There's capacity for future growth, which is anticipated, but that's why we built InSkeep, and they've got room to handle growth for many, many years to come in Cold Springs. However, on slide 3, we've got the O'Brien feeders. All of these are K-5 now. We've got the 6th graders up into O'Brien Middle School with room for growth there. But you can see the imbalance across those 4. And that's really the opportunity that we wanted to try to talk through with you guys over the next couple of months. Are there scenarios where we can better distribute those communities across the existing schools for some years to come? We also thought it was noteworthy, I'll point out on this slide, we added the opening dates of those schools. So I won't do the math here on the mic, but the schools that have the higher utilization numbers are the older nature, and that is often challenging for those older schools to function and absorb those types of enrollment numbers in comparison to the 1990s era schools that Alice Smith and Desert Heights are. So this is really just setting the stage for some problem solving. We think we can do some work there. I like this one. Randy Baxley, if you guys know him, helps put these together. This is in a perfect world if they were all evenly distributed, right? The total capacity divided by the total enrollment. That's when you look at that, hey, we're only at 76% across the 4. Is there a way that we can more efficiently distribute them? We all know how painfully not that easy that is to do, but we're going to see if we can do better than existing distribution levels. All right, and this slide is merely the same information as was depicted in those bar charts across all of those schools, but now with the projected enrollments. So you can see, the reason I think this is relevant is, I'm going to flip back and forth here. This guy. This red star I did not speak to previously, but this is a parcel that the school district owns currently that is anticipated to be an elementary school in the future. So this is an area of high growth for right as we speak and well into the future. So I do anticipate that there'll be questions from the community about, hey, when are you going to build this new school, and won't that precipitate additional rezoning of these same boundaries? The answer to that question is yes. This is an area of high growth, just like Spanish Springs, just like South Meadows. However, back to these forecasts, this is pre any zoning action. You can see even our more heavily utilized elementary schools, Stead and Lemon Valley, still don't forecast, pre-rezoning, don't forecast to exceed 100% capacity within this time frame. So again, we'll get into this deeper, and we'll actually present scenarios just like we always do, but we believe that there will be an opportunity to make a modest rezoning action between these elementary schools to better rebalance and distribute these enrollments such that they'll be able to absorb the growth for a sufficient number of years to come. Ultimately, a need is projected to materialize to build another elementary school in the future, but that will be far enough into the future so that we don't violate any regulations around like rezoning a student multiple times within their elementary school career. I forget the exact, 3 years or something like that, but I'm clumsily giving you this context because I think there will be a lot of questions on that, and I want everybody to kind of be forearmed with this knowledge so that we can all work together through, yes, that's a thing, but, we think there's an opportunity for us to make some reasonable adjustments to better utilize the capacity for quite a few years to come before ultimately another new elementary school is needed. And yes, we'll have to redraw the enrollment boundaries at that time, but that will be in some future date. So I think that's it. If anybody has any questions or discussions, I think we'd be interested in any feedback you might have that might inform. We haven't, composed the draft options yet, but otherwise this is really just intended to be a primer for next month. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Adriana Publico for the record. I know that in general we try to avoid split feeders, and I was just curious if Desert Heights is the only split feeder in this area. It looks like some students go to O'Brien and some students go to Cold Springs. And I forget why we did that, but I think we had some good reasoning around it. Is that the only one?
I believe so. I'm sure there's an exception to the rule, but I can't recall it off the top of my head.
Yes, that is the only split elementary school.
Do you remember why?
Yes, it had to do with the number of students and pulling them out of Cold Springs and putting them into O'Brien, and then how low of capacity Cold Springs would have been at. So we left those students in Cold Springs. And I think it was done.
It was 2020, right before COVID.
Yes.
We were up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it didn't
Before my
make sense
tenure.
to take the kids that are closer to the Desert Heights campus all the way to Cold Springs because they literally drive past O'Brien on their way, right?
Correct. The
Okay.
buses would go past there.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks. Jen is nodding her head back there.
Yes, and I also believe that particular decision, there was a change last minute at the board meeting of the Board of Trustees, and they did not fully take our decision on that particular item.
There was definitely some degree, I can't recall the specifics. There's some challenging roadway
I think
connectivity
it
or
had
lack
something to
thereof
do
there.
with some roadway issues.
But listen, I think that's a really good point that you brought up that I will look to reevaluate. I don't want to, open that back up unless we really feel strongly about it. But, the pandemic has changed the lay of the land in a lot of ways. And at the time, the enrollments and forecasted enrollments at Silver Lake Elementary School were really challenging and were driving some of the tough choices that we made. And the current situation there has changed. And like I said, a lot of things COVID or pandemic related, it's not entirely clear why that change occurred, but there may be an opportunity that didn't appear to exist in 2019, 2020 that may exist today. I want to explore that. But that split feeder situation at the middle school level that you mentioned is noteworthy. That's a good point.
Thank you. I'm mostly trying to give Shannon some context for the kinds of things we need to think about. And we used to have guiding principles, 5 or 6 of them, and I don't think we kind of went over those today.
So we have what's called the policy, and within the policy are the items that you must consider. And we have the 2 policies that regulate us. Are they in your folder today? I don't think so. But what we will do is put them in the folder for the next meeting, and we'll tab the pages that have those. They're not called guiding principles in the policy, but it is items that you must consider when we're making decisions. So yes, we'll add those in there. And then last year, Adam added kind of a recap of those at the beginning of certain decisions that were being made. So we'll add those back into the PowerPoint as well. But we'll get you the 2, it's actually 2 regulations, policy and a regulation, right?
Yes.
Yes. So we'll get you those so that you have them.
Yeah, student safety above all else is
Right.
what I remember, right?
Mhm.
Everything else
Yeah.
is kind of a competing priority.
It's, think about transportation, things like that.
Got a few questions. Tyler Rogers for the record.
Poor Tanner, sorry.
First off, Adam, love the 3D graphical bar chart addition this year. Kudos.
Yeah.
Incremental improvement, visual.
Randy Baxley, the man behind the curtain.
Two real questions. Is the vision that the new school would replace Stead Elementary? They're just so close. I'm curious if that's an assumption, or if that's too early to conclude.
That's not the current thinking, that it will actually be a necessary addition given the significant anticipated residential growth, but yeah,
Okay.
it's quite a few years out into the future.
You're
We
usually
do-
pretty
we
good
do-
at predicting the future, it seems like, so I'll be curious where that growth is forecast as we look at these maps.
Our crystal ball took some dings over the last couple of years. We own the property, which is a big hurdle.
Yeah.
So we've got options.
Okay. Being the second year of me looking at these maps, the fact that I was expecting a major roadway to be a barrier, but I understand the geography that up there, that 395, there's some people live across it, but there's not much, but some people have to cross that. So the fact that there is that like blue line directly underneath Stead Elementary that's taking folks up to Lemon Valley, I think I'm just going to be curious to understand the walkability from that neighborhood to Stead Elementary, because it is close, just like as the bird flies, but it's hard to tell how safe it is to actually cross 395 up there and why that chunk is feeding up to Lemon, even though it's like close. So I'll just be curious as we look at the maps next time to better understand that.
That's a good point. They've actually recently improved Lemon Drive intersection quite a bit. This line between Lemon and Alice Smith on the opposite side of 395, I think will have some options to it. And then these lines right here throughout Stead.
I was thinking of the line directly below the red star,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
understanding, like, can you walk across 395 or get across anywhere safe there?
Not likely.
There's probably busing, so it would be a bus and the students going to one school, and then if you guys consider the area, if there is already a bus, which I'm assuming there is because they're elementary age students going by 395, so those students would still remain on a bus, but where would you like, would you like to, the options that you have to place them somewhere? So my guess would be it's a bus. Where do you want the bus to go?
Christy Hester for the record. I remember last time, I sometimes work up off of Lemon Drive, and the traffic to get in and out of there is super, super congested. So just taking into account, I remember last time they were saying it took like an hour to get down Lemon Drive, and if you wanted to turn back and go back the other way, then it would be another hour to come back. So just huge amount of transportation issues, huge amount of congestion, because there's basically two ways in, two ways out for the entire valley.
Christine Hull for the record. I do remember a lot of conversation from parents about the parents that needed to drive into town, and so to go back north then to go south to work was a difficulty at that time. So I'll be interested to see, what that will do and what the public comment will be. So it will be great that we'll be in the community. But yes, you are right. The congestion in North Valleys is pretty rough, and unfortunately, we can't control RTC. So we can't control the roadways. We have no control over that. Also, I just want to mention to everyone that the geography of the North Valleys, while it looks really close, oftentimes there's a mountain in the way, and so. The Adam and his team are really, really creative with this. So before the next time, feel free to look over some Google Maps, but I know that he'll put some terrain maps in there as well, because he's really good at that. So keep that in mind, that we may hear a little bit of that. So thanks for this.
Just another point of context, kind of along Adriana's line of thinking. Oftentimes when we are able to make recommendations, we'll do so with like a full school year's notice. So I don't want to presuppose this. This would be something we develop together. But if we were able to reach a recommendation and take it to the board and have it be approved, I would say it's more likely than not to go into effect not next school year, but the following school year, actually. So as we get into this, thoughts about roadway improvements, for example, that may be completed in the next 18 months, things like that. I just want to provide some context, and that's something that we always emphasize in our graphics when we make these forecasts. And when we communicate with the community, they're, oh my goodness, I'm going to be rezoned next year. My kid will actually, your child will be in 7th grade by the time this goes into effect. Oh, okay, thank you for clarifying. Now I'm not concerned. Stuff like that.
Darren Fleck for the record. Adam, could you go back to the chart page? And I just want to try to understand some more about some of the charts. For example, the additional temporary, would that be trailers? Portable classrooms. Because I'm trying to understand why we would have portables at a school with a 50% capacity, or are they just hand-me-downs from when the school had been at a bigger value or with a higher population?
The latter. That's correct. So listen, I appreciate you highlighting this. Again, just for point of reference, those additional temporary numbers are portable classrooms, like all of us are familiar with. They're typically 2 classrooms in one building, and so additional temporary capacity of 50 would be representative of 1 portable unit. 2 classrooms of 25 student capacity each. That's what that is. When you go to the right-hand side of the table and you see those percentages, that's current or forecasted enrollment divided by the maximum base capacity, not inclusive of the portable capacity. So that's always just an important clarification. The reason that Desert Heights Elementary School still has a portable, it is a remnant from a time when they needed it, and we just haven't gone and relocated it elsewhere. And we'll probably talk about that. There are some special programs, some pre-K programs that are located there. Oftentimes we use schools that have a little bit of underutilized capacity for special programs like that aren't always well captured in these types of graphs or analysis. So I think it's important that we be sort of comprehensive in our depiction of the available capacity there that maybe is underrepresented in just numerical, like this is your enrollment. Well, yes, we also have some special programs that take up space that either isn't well captured or isn't well represented in the ratio. Right. I can't have 30 students in a strategies classroom, for example. So that will come out when we get deeper into this.
And usually you do list those special programs when we go to consider things, right? I mean, because they can skew numbers greatly. GT magnet programs, correct, where you have 10 kids in a classroom, so therefore you end up with portables at a school that's under 100% capacity.
That's exactly right, and we will do our best to either quantitatively or qualitatively articulate that, because sometimes it is a little bit fuzzy. It's not a spreadsheet exercise, and there's some of that, some of those variables are in play with these schools.
And then the only other question I have about the information you present and, is there any way to get information possibly on the number of variances provided? Because do these numbers include an average number of variances, or is it just based on previous years? Because I know that can get skewed a little bit, especially right after a zone where a school's variances go way up high just so an admin can keep a set number or a system in place that you have within a building. And I think that plays a large role too.
So we do look at the variances from our end in the Office of School Leadership for how many variances schools have, for sure. If it's impacting largely this, then yes, we will bring that to you and let you know about that. We did so in the past before my tenure here. One of the things that's been happening recently with the rezoning, so there is what's called a rezoning variance. So it's for the highest grade, and that the student rising from 4th to 5th, the 5th grader can now stay. If they have a sibling, they can stay. There is no transportation provided for a rezone variance. So what we've seen recently is a lack of children taking advantage of that because they need the transportation, especially out in the North Valleys. So we rezoned Silver Lake, and people expected children to stay quite a bit. There was not. They did go to the schools that we rezoned to because of that. Same thing when we rezoned Galena High School and Damani and Worcester.
Yeah, and I'm just, any schools that would be, I know of schools that have 10 to 15% variance rates, and that's a big number to, when looking at those numbers, you take 15% of your kids off and everyone else is on a or those 15% are on a variance, kind of skews what the neighborhood is projecting.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we pull those numbers and have conversations with principals, right?
Yeah.
Especially as the school's getting more and more crowded, we will require them to do less and less. And one of the reasons to deny a variance is being overcrowded. Well, not having the allocation for the children that are coming. So if you're allocated at your capacity or at the, the zone students, the variance students would.
Okay.
We wouldn't have space for them.
I was going to add to that. I think one of the schools we rezoned last year had been in the rezone several years previously, and they had a special program and a lot of variances, and that information was always provided to us. So that will be part of the presentation. But yeah, it becomes an issue when they're taking on too many, but Lauren's staff has done a really good job of keeping that number down, I think. So the rezoned schools, we see just that, especially the high schools, that's really the only ones that get a ton of variances with that clause that allows them. But
because it's juniors and seniors?
Yeah.
Because of athletics and stuff. So juniors and seniors can stay and their sibling. So if you have a junior and senior, a junior could bring his freshman brother, stay for another year as a sophomore at that point, right? And then the following year, they technically could drive. So the sibling ends up being there for 4 years on a high school rezone. Did that make sense? Or was that way too much information? You're like looking at me like.
No, I agree. But we also do have schools that are subsidizing their space by bringing in kids.
Oh, I thought you said
I think
so
it's.
my
I think
school,
it's.
for example, has 145 variances this year. We have a base group of kids of 680, and we're at 835. So that provides a big difference when you're looking at a neighborhood, right? And so that's what I'm getting at. And if there are anywhere else is just a question, because I never thought about it until I heard that number this year at my site, and that made me go. And that's just simply to float so we don't have a massive redesign of the structure of the school, who's teaching what, teaming, stuff like that. And that's what I'm getting at with knowing the zoning. I appreciate, and I really do appreciate everything you guys do, and the crystal ball aspect of everything, I mean, is insane what you have to deal with. And I just think sometimes those numbers get skewed when you see a principal trying to hold on to capacity in order to not have a massive layoff of 4 or 5 teachers, and to try to put that into the understanding of what these numbers actually represent outside the the zoning and high school and football and stuff like that. So, thank you both, by the way, too.
No, absolutely. I think that's a great point. Along the same lines as the special programs, it's a material variable in this whole complicated equation that will bring forward some degree of detail on, so we can all have the whole picture together.
All right. Any other questions for Adam or Lauren? All right. Do we have?
There was a public comment for 2.07, but the members have received the email already.
Okay, great. And everybody got the copy of that email? And we will be out at O'Brien, so I think we will get a lot of wonderful comments. So closing 3.01, this is our general public comment on topics not specifically addressed anywhere else in the agenda.
Pablo Duran.
Yeah, it's Pablo Nava Duran. So general public comments. Now I'm a substitute teacher for Mosey Hook High School. So I have a question for Adam Sisley. So what to do if I were a teacher at Hook High School and my sister was go be zoned for Damani Went High School? So like try to take the variant for my sister to Hook High School. It's not started until 2024-2025 school year for her freshman year. So I have questions. So that's the question. So here we go. So other than that, so for the 2.0 for the North Valley area, it seems like my cousin lived in the North Valley area. It seems like I thought there's zone for Desert Heights or State Domestic School, but actually. I thought there are variants to Lemon Valley Med School, but actually I saw on the maps they say, oh, there are zones for Lemon Valley Med School because the neighborhood was kind of a little screwed up. I think the new med school will bring the neighborhood together. So we talk about the zoning advice community, like keeping neighborhood school together. So I think like we should keep a neighborhood school together, but in the Valley area. This one is a very rural area with the sea scrape, all type of stuff, but it's becoming more suburbia areas, and hopefully like we could maybe what if we zone for the new school? What will it look like for the new Silver Lake, Sky Vista Med School, and do we have to? I think down here the south 395 of Lemon Valley, we could rezone to Alex Smith Med School because since Alex Smith, you took out all the Panther Valley rezone out to Alex Smith a few years ago. I think we could regain the population of Lemon Valley because Lemon Valley is the oldest. Well, it's older schools, so I think that we need to leave Overgrad as soon as possible. And then also for Desert Heights and for Cold Spring O'Brien, it seemed like a little bit unbalanced, but we was only to Cold Spring for Desert Heights. In the future, if new high school Cold Spring, I think there could possibly rezone to Cold Spring and then to the new high school. So that's my opinion. So that is your opinion. So I don't know about the North Valley area, but I do know well about North Valley area. I had my cousin live, so here we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. All right, before we dismiss, Lauren has a little announcement.
So as things ever change in our district, we are moving to have the staff liaison for our committee here come out of Adam's office. So this technically is my last meeting as the staff liaison, and Adam will shift to that role until he finds a replacement from his department. But with that being said, with zoning, a key component, and I think why things have been so successful, is because our office is involved in it. In years past, we weren't. So we've had great announcements going to parents. We have Connect Eds going out to families regularly, and the way we message to families, and also making sure that nothing's a surprise to principals ever. So we will have a representative at every meeting. So at the next meeting, Jen Van Tres will be here. She is the area superintendent for the North Valleys. So she will be here and she can answer any staff-related questions that I answered for you in the past. She will answer those. If at any meeting, one of the area superintendents cannot attend for whatever reason, I will be here. So I will be that person to answer the questions. And I just want you to know, we always do kind of a meeting with principals to let them know what's coming up. Here are the changes that are being proposed. Here's what the zoning committee will see at their meeting. We let them know that so they're prepared for parent questions. We will still do that, Adam and I, and the area superintendent for the area. We will hold those meetings to make sure principals are aware of possibilities and different things impacting. So I want to thank you all. It's been such an honor to be with you every single time, but I will be back in and out. You can't lose me, okay?
We're not letting you totally go.
Keep a little.
All right. Anything else for, all right.
One follow-up on that. So thank you. And just to be clear, Adam is now the person we email with questions as our liaison to staff. Cool. And thank you, Lauren.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so officially 7:01, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.